Carl Ransom Rogers was born on January 8, 1902 in Oak Park, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. He was the fourth of 6 children in a strict, deeply religious family. His father, Walter Rogers, was a civil engineer, and his mother, Julia Cushing, was a devoted homemaker. The family adhered to conservative Christian values, emphasizing discipline, hard work, and moral rigor. Activities like dancing, card playing, and movies were forbidden, creating a structured and restrictive environment that shaped Rogers' early years. And despite having siblings, Rogers often felt lonely and overshadowed, believing his parents favored an older brother. He was a shy, introspective child who found refuge in books, devouring dictionaries and encyclopedias by the age of 5. At 12, the family moved to a farm outside Chicago, where Rogers developed a fascination with agriculture and science. He conducted experiments such as breeding moths, nurturing a love for scientific inquiry and independence, traits that would later influence his psychological work. Rogers began his higher education at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, initially studying agriculture, reflecting his rural upbringing. However, his interests soon shifted towards understanding human nature. Influenced by his religious background and a desire to explore deeper questions, he changed his major to history and then theology, intending to become a minister. A turning point came in 1922 when Rogers attended a Christian conference in China. This experience challenged his fundamentalist beliefs and opened his mind to more liberal religious ideas. He began questioning rigid doctrines and sought a more personal understanding of human experience. After graduating in 1924, Rogers enrolled at Union Theological Seminary in New York City. However, exposure to liberal theology and psychology courses at Teachers College, Columbia University sparked a profound shift. He realized psychology was his true calling and transferred to Teachers College, earning a master's degree in 1928 and a PhD in clinical psychology in 1931. His doctoral research focused on child psychology and clinical methods, emphasizing scientific rigor and empirical study. Rogers' early professional career began in Rochester, New York, where he directed the Child Study Department at the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children from 1928 to 1938. Working with troubled children and their families, he observed the critical role of empathy, acceptance, and the therapeutic relationship in fostering personal growth. During this period, Carl Rogers also taught at the University of Rochester and began developing his revolutionary ideas about therapy. His first major publication, Counseling and Psychotherapy, published in 1942, introduced a non-directive approach that emphasized the client's capacity for self-directed change. Several mentors and intellectual influences shaped Rogers' thinking. William Hurd Kilpatrick, a progressive educator, inspired his belief in experiential learning and the importance of subjective experience. Otto Rank's client-centered approach to therapy resonated deeply, emphasizing the individual's capacity for growth and self-actualization. Philosophers Søren Kierkegaard and Martin Buber influenced Rogers' views on authentic relationships and personal agency, reinforcing his focus on genuine human connection. In the 1940s and 1950s, Rogers developed what he called client-centered therapy, later known as person-centered therapy. This approach was a radical departure from the dominant psychoanalytic and behaviorist models, which often positioned the therapist as an authority figure. Instead, Rogers viewed the client as the expert on their own experience, capable of self-directed growth. His 1951 book, Client-Centered Therapy, laid out the theoretical foundations of this approach. Rogers introduced the concept of the phenomenal field, referring to the client's subjective world, and outlined 19 propositions describing human behavior and personality development. At the core of his therapy were 3 essential conditions for change: unconditional positive regard, empathy, and congruence. Unconditional positive regard means accepting clients without judgment, creating a safe space for exploration. Empathy involves deeply understanding the client's feelings and perspective. Congruence requires therapists to be genuine and authentic, modeling openness and honesty. Rogers believed every person has an innate actualizing tendency, a natural drive toward growth, fulfillment, and self-actualization. His therapy aimed to nurture this potential by providing a supportive environment where clients could explore and resolve their conflicts freely. Rogers' major works include On Becoming a Person, published in 1961, a collection of essays emphasizing authenticity, self-acceptance, and the therapeutic process. In Freedom to Learn, published in 1969, he applied his humanistic principles to education, advocating for student-centered learning environments that foster creativity, intrinsic motivation, and personal responsibility. His 1980 book, A Way of Being, reflected on his life's work and philosophy, emphasizing the importance of living authentically and embracing personal growth. Rogers' contributions revolutionized psychotherapy by shifting the focus from pathology to potential. His client-centered approach influenced numerous therapeutic modalities, including motivational interviewing and coaching. He was also a pioneer in psychotherapy research, systematically recording and analyzing therapy sessions to provide empirical support for his methods. Beyond therapy, Rogers' ideas transformed education by promoting environments that empower students and encourage self-expression. His humanistic psychology, often called the third force, stood alongside psychoanalysis and behaviorism, emphasizing free will, subjective experience, and the positive aspects of human nature. Carl Rogers married Helen Elliott in 1924, a partnership that lasted until her death in 1979. They had 2 children, David and Natalie. Rogers' personal life reflected his professional values. He practiced empathy, genuineness, and unconditional positive regard in his relationships. Described as a quiet revolutionary, Rogers was introspective, empathetic, and deeply committed to understanding human nature. He believed in the inherent goodness of people and their capacity for growth. His personal reflections often emphasized self-awareness and congruence, the alignment between one's self-concept and lived experience. Rogers once said, "We cannot change, we cannot move away from what we are until we thoroughly accept what we are." This philosophy guided both his life and work, underscoring the importance of authenticity and acceptance. In his later years, Rogers expanded his work beyond psychotherapy to address broader societal issues. He applied his person-centered approach to intergroup and international conflict resolution, emphasizing empathy and understanding as tools for peacebuilding. He worked with groups in Northern Ireland, South Africa, and other regions torn by conflict, facilitating dialogue and reconciliation. Rogers' influence spread worldwide. By the time of his death, over 175 centers across the globe practiced his methods. Carl Rogers passed away on February 4, 1987, in La Jolla, California, at the age of 85. His death followed complications from a fall that fractured his pelvis. After surgery, he suffered cardiac arrest and fell into a coma, passing away 3 days later due to pancreatic failure and heart complications. His humanistic philosophy reshaped education, promoting student-centered learning and personal empowerment. Beyond psychology, his principles have informed conflict resolution, leadership development, and social movements advocating for civil rights and personal freedom. In a 1982 survey, Rogers was ranked as the most influential psychotherapist in history, surpassing even Sigmund Freud. His work continues to inspire psychologists, educators, and individuals worldwide, reminding us of the power of understanding and valuing the human experience. The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. Carl Rogers.